All right, let's open up the book of Genesis and dive into one of the most monumental events ever recorded, the Great Flood. This isn't just a story about destruction. It's really a foundational account of divine judgment, of miraculous preservation, and ultimately the rebirth of a world. Let's get right into it.
So where does it all start? It begins with a direct, personal call from God. In a world that had completely turned its back on its creator, just one man, Noah, was found righteous. And this wasn't some minor detail. It was the entire reason he and his family would be saved from the coming judgment. You see, this was an invitation not just into a boat, but into salvation itself.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to walk through this chapter in 5 distinct stages, following the narrative exactly as it's laid out in the scripture. We'll start with the last instructions given to Noah and go all the way to the final sobering outcome.
Okay, so the ark is built. It's done. And now God issues the final command. And this isn't just about, everybody get on board. This is about stewarding the future of all life on earth. And the instructions for a task that huge, well, they have to be precise and divine.
Now, this is where we see a really crucial distinction. The unclean animals are brought in by twos, a male and a female. That's enough to preserve the species. But the clean animals and the birds, they're brought in by sevens. This is just amazing foresight. It provides not only for the continuation of those species, but also for the sacrifices Noah would need to make in worship after the flood. Every single detail is part of a perfect plan.
Once that command is given, the clock starts ticking. There's a 7-day period. It's a final week of grace. Can you just imagine the scene? Noah, his family, this incredible parade of animals, all entering the ark, while the world outside just keeps on going, completely clueless about what's coming.
And this wasn't chaos. It was an orderly, deliberate procession. For 7 days, that door to salvation stood wide open. And then, on the final day, with every single creature safely inside, we get this moment of absolute divine finality.
This, right here, is one of the most profound phrases in the entire chapter. Think about that for a second. It wasn't Noah who sealed the ark from the inside. The scripture is so clear. The Lord shut him in. That is an act of divine protection for everyone inside, and at the exact same moment, it's an act of final, irreversible judgment on the world left outside.
And with that door shut, the waiting is over. The very fabric of the created world literally begins to come apart. This is the start of the cataclysm, a deluge from sources humanity had never, ever seen before.
See, the flood wasn't just rain, not even close. The Bible describes this two-front assault. First, the fountains of the great deep burst open. These are massive reserves of subterranean water just erupting from beneath the earth's crust. And at the same time, the windows of heaven were opened. It was a complete and total unmaking of the world as they knew it.
The text is so incredibly precise here, and it grounds this cosmic event in human history. This isn't written like some vague, once-upon-a-time myth. The scripture records the exact date. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that very day the judgment began. That kind of specificity just underscores the reality of what happened.
And as the flood starts, the water doesn't just fall, it prevails. What a powerful word. It conquers everything. The scripture uses this language to describe the sheer, overwhelming, unstoppable scale of the deluge as it just takes over the entire globe.
For 40 days and 40 nights, the downpour is just relentless. And that number, 40, that's not some random number, is it? It echoes all throughout Scripture as a period of profound trial and testing. You think of Moses on the mountain, or Christ in the wilderness. Here, it represents a world under judgment.
And let's be really clear. This was not a local flood. The scripture says the waters rose 15 cubits. That's over 22 feet above the peaks of the highest mountains. Just try to picture that. There was no escape. No high ground was going to save you. The entire planet was submerged beneath a single global ocean.
The sheer duration of this is just staggering. Even after those 40 days of rain finally stopped, the waters prevailed, there's that word again, upon the earth for 150 days. For 5 solid months, the ark floated completely alone in a long, silent, submerged world, just waiting for the waters of judgment to finally recede.
So now we arrive at the solemn result of this cataclysm. The purpose of the flood becomes crystal clear. It was a simultaneous act of perfect judgment on a corrupt world and perfect preservation of a righteous remnant.
The text is just explicit and comprehensive. Every single living thing that had the breath of life in its nostrils on dry land died. The slate was being wiped completely, totally clean, destroying everything that humanity's sin had corrupted.
And then the narrative does this amazing thing. It creates this stunning, stark contrast. After listing everything that was wiped out, the focus pulls in, dramatically, to just one man. Amidst all that universal destruction, Noah remained.
But of course, he wasn't alone. The scripture immediately adds this crucial clarification. Preserved right there with him were his wife, his 3 sons, their wives, and all the pairs and sevens of every animal. The ark, floating there on the waters of judgment, became the one and only vessel of life and hope for the entire future of the world.
So as we finish our look at Genesis 7, we're left with this powerful image of a single door, a door shut by God himself. And the text shows us it was both, wasn't it? It was a door of final judgment for an unrepentant world, but it was also a door of absolute salvation for the family who believed and obeyed. In the end, everything depended on which side of that door you were on.